Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is Wednesday, January the 10th, 2018, day 307 of TowerGate. Of course, it is Wednesday, and of course, you know, on Wednesday, I take out the trash and I have chicken. Every Wednesday, I take out the trash and I have chicken. Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to all my new subscribers and those of you who may be viewing a TowerGate video for the first time. It's great to have you all along. Today's video, I'm going to be focusing primarily for most of the video on my sort of analysis, my response to the part 2 of SonofNewo's latest video, which came out last night. We've all been eagerly awaiting that. So he got it up last night and I had a chance to watch it and review it. And so we'll be covering that today. And I think you're really going to enjoy that. But we do have a couple of very important news items from the last 24 hours, so I want to go ahead and cover that, and then we'll get right into the look at SonofNewo's Part 2. Okay, well, today most of you have already heard that Diane, Turn In Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein, released the interview that was done this past in August of 2016 with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. Now, that did not make Charles Grassley very happy. He was furious with Diane, Turn In Your Guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein. But what that has done is it has prompted several other members who were involved and who were in those hearings to come out and point out some of the highlights of what was revealed in that lengthy interview session with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. We don't have time to go through all that today, and there'll be more of that coming out in the days to follow, so we'll be touching on those ones that are really poignant. But there's a couple things we will talk about. So, first of all, there's one thing that came out of it that we've learned today that tells me that Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS has basically hung himself, because it appears that when he was in that interview, he was asked if he attempted to verify any of the claims made by Christopher Steele. And he says that he took steps to verify Steele's information, and he said he relied on sources, but he would not reveal those sources. Well, you know, when this thing gets fully untangled and we find ourselves in the courtroom with the grand jury seated and the prosecutor, Mr. Simpson, under oath, is going to be pretty much forced to identify those sources, because it will be the only thing that will be saving his neck. And he's going to have to come out with something. I don't think he had any sources, and I don't think he tried to verify anything. For very good reason. Because it was him and his wife and Nellie Orr cooking the whole thing up. It was home cooking, friends. Cooking up the victuals. That's what they were doing. There were no sources. There was no need to verify something he was creating. So I think he hung himself there, because he never expected. Remember the context here. This interview was done in August of 2016 when Glenn Simpson believed that the FBI and the DOJ were going to be successful at stonewalling, and that possibly Mueller would find some technicality to go after Trump or Jared Kushner or maybe Don Trump Jr. or something. They were hoping that Mueller would be able to create the shit storm. And so Glenn Simpson, as is in the case of the civil lawsuits, a lot of things have been said in depositions by Christopher Steele, by Glenn Simpson, by David Kramer, by other witnesses, because at the time when they gave them depositions and made these statements, we were looking at a completely different scenario than what we have today, where today the Russian narrative has been practically destroyed. And Nunes and Grassley and other members who've kept the pressure on and threatened to put Ray, Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray, and Rod Rodenstein in contempt of Congress, has forced them to give up the documents and the witnesses and the evidence. And so now it's a much different picture. I can assure you that if Glenn Simpson were testifying today, or if he or Christopher Steele or David Kramer or any of these other witnesses in the civil lawsuits that are going on, if they were doing that today, they would have much different answers. I can assure you that. Glenn Simpson has just given the noose to the hangman. And he knows it. Why do you think they fought so hard to keep those bank records from getting to Mr. Nunes, who's now reading them and learning a lot? And we're about to find out why he wanted those so bad here in just a moment. Next, epic takedown. When Trump said he's a genius, he wasn't lying. I don't know how many of you caught this press conference, or not press conference, but this meeting that Trump had today with Republican and Democrat leaders to discuss immigration and DACA. This was a masterstroke, a political masterstroke. It's the best political operation I've ever seen by any politician ever. And Trump's not even a politician. I don't know how many of you saw that. It was very subtle, but if you're paying close attention and you understand where this was all coming from, then you can understand how mega important and how powerful this actually was. So let's review very quickly what happened. Trump was scheduled today to have a meeting with the Republican and Democrat leaders to discuss DACA and immigration. But what he did without telling the Democrats is he invited the media. He invited them in to watch a little sausage making, something we never get to see. You know, we all talk about, wow, what do they do behind closed doors when they're discussing this stuff and cutting deals, the smoky back rooms and stuff like that. Well, Trump brought those cameras in today to the smoky back room and let us all see what happens when these guys sit down and try to hammer out deals. But there was what Trump did today was, first of all, he did not tell these Democrats, so he caught them, blindsided them, set them up. They were like deers in the headlights. They didn't know what hit them when they walked into the meeting and saw all those media organizations with cameras rolling as they videotaped the entire meeting. Why did Trump do this? Well, guess who else he set up? He set up the media too. He got the Democrats and the media all in one fell swoop, and he completely destroyed the Trump is mentally deranged. He's mentally incompetent. He's unfit. We need a 25th Amendment to remove the president. He blew that completely to smithereens today. Blew it away. Because what he did is he invited these Democrats in, invited in the media, and the Democrats never knew it. And so it shocked him. It really put him back on their heels. And then he conducted an incredible meeting. He was the boss. He looked totally calm, cool, collected, in charge. He was big and bold. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. If you want to see how a guy runs a meeting of a guy like Trump's stature and why he is so smart and why he is so successful and so wealthy and all that, you saw it today in the way he handled himself in that meeting. He made the Democrats look like a bunch of crying, spoiled young babies. You could tell he was the man in charge. He was running that meeting, and he was telling them what they're going to do. He wasn't bullying them, but he's very forceful in those meetings. You can see what people are talking about. That's how he is. You know, he butters you up. He's very, very nice to you, but when the rubber begins to hit the road, he just looks at you and says, "Look, this is what you're going to do." And he told him, he said, "You're going to negotiate. You Republicans and you Democrats, you're going to negotiate this immigration and DACA. You're going to get a good bill that works with the people, that does what it's supposed to do. You're going to do the right thing. You're going to get it done, and I'm going to sign that bill." That's what's going to happen. I mean, he was running that meeting. He looked great. And what he did was he removed any doubt whatsoever that there's any mental incompetence whatsoever in President Trump. There ain't a lick of incompetence there, my friends. This dude is the boss. He was running that show, and it looked great. So he single-handedly destroyed the 25th Amendment argument of he's mentally incompetent with that performance he gave today. He kicked the Democrats back on their heels because a lot of the propaganda and BS that we're going to try to use in that meeting they couldn't do because the cameras were rolling, and he used the media to set the whole thing up. He used the media to take down the Democrats' 25th Amendment argument. He played them all like a Stradivarius. I love this guy. Now you know why he beat 19 Republicans and destroyed the rotten Reverend Clinton, and why he said he's a genius. He is. That was a master stroke of epic biblical proportions. Politicians are not smart enough to do that. They're just not. But man, Trump certainly took care of business today, my friends. Watch the video. It's right there. Documented history. Next. Bannon is out. This didn't surprise any of us. I said a couple of days ago, right after all this stuff went down, when the Wolf book came out, I said, Bannon's gone. He's toast. He's out of Breitbart. No way. And that happened today, because the people who are the big money backers of Breitbart said you're out of there. Not only that, he got his Sirius program canceled, which is going to make my sister very upset. She likes Bannon, and she listens to his Sirius radio program every day. But not anymore. Maybe I'll send her a box of chicken to make her feel better. I don't even have to wait for Wednesday to do that. Anyway, I shouldn't do that, because actually she's baking me a birthday cake. I'll wait till after I get the cake, and then I'll send her the box of chicken. Okay, next we have Ron DeSantis has asked Paul Ryan to declassify all the DOJ and FBI files on the dossier. You think he'll do it? Because according to DeSantis, he says the American people have a right to see what the FBI and DOJ were doing. You need to shed some daylight on it. I agree with Ron DeSantis. How about you? You think Paul Big Ears Eddie Munster Ryan will declassify all that? We'll just have to wait and see. It's all going to come out anyway. Michael Cohen, Trump's attorney, the one who was of course accused in the dossier of traveling to Prague and having secret meetings with Russians, which turned out to be completely false. Michael Cohen today filed a lawsuit against BuzzFeed and Fusion GPS. That makes, let's see, 8 lawsuits that BuzzFeed is now facing and 4 lawsuits that Fusion GPS is now facing. You would not want to be BuzzFeed or Fusion GPS right now, my friends. They are ruined financially, personally, professionally, and I'm not so sure they're not in danger of criminal liability. We also learned from those from the interview that Glenn Simpson did, is he admitted in that interview last August of 2016, in those hearings, closed session, he admitted that he works with the media and that he does all the time when he does these dossiers, which he does for many different people. He said, yes, we definitely, we communicate with the media, we talk to the media, we give stories to the media, we push stories to the media. He admitted all that. And that is why Devin Nunes wanted those bank records. He wanted to find out who. Now, there's really nothing wrong from his point of view of doing this and admitting to that. That's not a crime for him. But it sure won't look good if you're a member of the media and you're found out that now if money changed hands, that takes it to a different level. But anyway, that's another thing that we learned is that Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS did admit that he spreads his garbage to the media and works very closely with them. If they accepted money, I don't know who you are going to see entire news organizations, the very highest level people, anyone who took a dime, they are done. Very, very done, my friends. I'm telling you, this thing's just, it's incredible. And we have a long way to go. That's why we're all here on this fantastic journey that we're all taking together. And I'm your host. I'm your tour guide. I'm your tour guide of the takedown of the deep state and the attempted frame-up of the president. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. And I sure hope you are too. Finally, the Russian dossier author, Christopher Steele, told the FBI when they interviewed him that they had a source. Christopher Steele was told by the FBI that they had a source inside the Trump campaign. That is why Christopher Steele believed that he was so solid in staying with the dossier, and why BuzzFeed is still saying, yeah, we stick with the story, and why Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS are all sticking behind the story. They're going to put it all on the FBI. Because apparently the FBI told them, either Steele or Fusion GPS or one of them, that the FBI had a source inside the Trump administration or inside the Trump campaign team at that time Who do you think that might have been? I can just see SonofNewo right now with a major fist pump. Major fist pump for SonofNewo. Because literally just last night, the day before, less than 24 hours before we learned this, SonofNewo comes out and basically tells us that he believes that it was Papadopoulos was likely planted by the FBI. Now, just so you know, if you watch my video, you know that right after we heard about Papadopoulos, because no one knew who he was at that time, we heard about him. Oh, okay, this guy, part of the Trump campaign, he's pleaded guilty. He's been wearing a wire, pleading guilty to making false statements to the FBI. Okay, so we're looking into this. I did a basic background bio on Papadopoulos, which we did here on TowerGate. And that's when I came to the conclusion. I said, wait a minute, this guy's got a lot more going on than just being some 28-year-old campaign volunteer. This dude's got a lot of things going on, and he's hanging around a lot of people that you don't hang around unless you're kind of somebody or involved with some people who are involved with somebodies. So I decided a couple days after that, and I stated so in a TowerGate video, that I thought that Papadopoulos was some kind of mole or plant. But I never really knew whose mole or plant he was. I didn't know if he was Fusion GPS. I didn't know if he was working for Steele. Maybe this other Mr. Downer, who was involved in a similar type of company, a company like Orbis, or a Fusion GPS type company. They do political opposition research, they do dirty tricks and all that kind of thing. So I really didn't know what kind of plant or who planted Papadopoulos, but I kind of believed that there was a lot more going on. Then SonofNewo comes out and does his first video, part 1, where he goes and does a deep dive into the background of Alexander Downer, this Australian diplomat. And he also dives into the background of Mr. Milian, Papadopoulos, and let's see, who was the other guy he did? Papadopoulos, Milian, the Australian diplomat, Mr. Downer. Basically, those are the guys he was looking at very closely. And what he revealed at the end of his video, part 1, he said, I think that Papadopoulos is a spy. So I'm seeing as a mole or a plant. SonofNewo sees him as a spy. They're all one and the same. Use whichever term you want. We're both saying the same thing, that Papadopoulos was not just some 28-year-old campaign volunteer who just got stuck into the Trump campaign. But I didn't know where he might have come from. I didn't even speculate, really, other than maybe thinking maybe Fusion GPS. But in part 2 of SonofNewo's video, he does say that he believes, this came out yesterday, that he believes that probably FBI, that he's probably was inside man for the FBI. So SonofNewo, give yourself a good pat on the back, my friend, because you nailed it yesterday, and today we get this information that that the FBI had a source inside the Trump team. There you go. SonofNewo, I shouldn't say he's been vindicated, but he's been proven correct, myself as well. He was a plant, he was a spy, he was a mole, whatever you want to call it. And we're about 99% sure he's the only one that would fit this description. He's the only one you can think of who is connected to all these things. He's the only one that could be this inside man. And the way that this reads, if you just read this without taking any of the other information we have and put into the proper context, you would think, oh, okay, well, the FBI had an inside man who was watching the Trump campaign, to see about this illegal activity going on. No. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that Papadopoulos was the inside man working for the FBI to assist in the frame-up. Of Trump. He was probably being managed by counterintelligence. Maybe Bruce Orr, maybe Peter Ben Strokanus, maybe Comey himself. Maybe the top guy over there at Counterintel, who we're going to be hearing from here shortly. Absolutely mind-boggling. Now let's get through some of the finer points of last night's SonofNewo video. He asks questions. And what he did, he said, okay, for part 2, here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to take, for example, this New York Times piece that came out last Sunday that said Papadopoulos was the guy who started the investigation into Trump-Russia. Not the dossier. Oh, no. It was Papadopoulos. So in part 1, SonofNewo effectively debunks this, just as I did, and many other people. But what SonofNewo did last night in part 2 is he said, I'm going to go ahead and roll with this theory that the New York Times came out with, that Papadopoulos was the guy. If that is true, then we need to ask the following questions. And it's funny because I sent him an email or a message, and I said, you know what? After the first video, I said, we're going to find out that this is going to backfire on them. The Papadopoulos thing is going to come out. It's going to backfire. It's going to boomerang on them. They're going to be sorry they ever ran that New York Times story. And now we're both being proven true about that because he agreed with me. Now, let's go through it. SonofNewo basically lays out the basic background of the New York Times story that says, of course, that Papadopoulos somehow finds himself excuse me, in a conversation with this Australian diplomat, Alexander Downer. And, he's having this conversation. They're getting kind of drunk. And he tells Downer, hey, I got a friend who told me he's connected to Russian intel that they got dirt on Hillary Clinton. They've got those some emails. And this is what supposedly happened in that meeting in London and the bar between Papadopoulos and Alexander Downer, this Australian diplomat, who, of course, his position is equal to that of Secretary of State. As crazy as that sounds, and you say, how would a guy like a Papadopoulos, a campaign volunteer, even get into access to a conversation with someone of that high level? And, of course, the answer both SonofNewo and I give you is that he wouldn't. No more than you or I would. Do you think that any of us could walk up to any Secretary of State or high-level diplomat and just start having drinks and shooting the breeze and talking about classified intelligence? I don't think so. They would end that conversation with you so fast it'd make your head spin. You'd never get anywhere near them anyway because of security. And and as soon as you start talking about something like that, oh man, they'd be, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Call the security over and say, this guy, get him away from me. I don't even want to know. But anyway, let's roll with the New York Times story and the SonofNewo. So, okay, we accept the premise. We're going to accept the premise that this actually did happen, okay? So if we accept that premise, then the first question is, if Papadopoulos' reason for the investigation, if Papadopoulos was the reason for the FBI investigation, why did the FBI not interview Papadopoulos for 6 months? Not for 6 months after they launched the investigation. If he's the cause of the investigation, why did they wait 6 months till after they launched the investigation to interview him? That's a pretty good question, SonofNewo. I believe I asked that one myself. Keep in mind, they met in the bar for that little drunken conversation allegedly on May the 16th of 2017. The FBI apparently learned about it in July of 2017. And the interview of Papadopoulos by the FBI did not occur until January 27th, 2017. None of it makes any sense, does it? Because it's bullshit. Number 2. Next question. Why wait 2.5 months after the election to interview Papadopoulos? Why wait 2.5 months? Because the first thing that some libs were trying to say to try to cover for the first question was to say, with the election going on, they probably didn't want to do anything with the election going on. But they waited for 2.5 months after the election before they interviewed Papadopoulos. So that answer doesn't fly. We must also remember that on January the 6th, 2017, the joint IC assessment was released and said nothing about Papadopoulos. We covered that here on TowerGate about a week ago or less. Next question. When did the FBI inform Congress, Gang of Eight, about Papadopoulos' role in the investigation? That's a very good question, because it appears that they didn't. Let's see those records. Oh, they did talk about Carter Page a lot. In fact, Harry Reid knew in August 2016 about the Trump-Russia dossier and Carter Page. We know because he wrote 2 letters to Comey, which are now public. They say nothing about Papadopoulos. Nothing Next question. Did the FBI ever warn the Trump campaign about Papadopoulos and let them know that Papadopoulos may be a security risk, a spy, or something else? Should the FBI have given Trump the heads up? Of course they should have. That's exactly what they would have done. You see, once you win the Republican and Democratic nomination, you begin getting briefings. And they're watching very carefully. In fact, part of that briefing is to tell presidential candidates, the Republican Democratic nominee, to be careful of these types of things, especially from the Russians, because they love to take advantage of those types of situations. Trump certainly had to be briefed about that, had to be told, sir, you want to be careful now with you're going to have a lot of people trying to get around you now that you've won the nomination. There's going to be foreign governments who are going to send people in, operatives. They're going to try to meddle. They're going to try to get this, try to get blackmail information, try to do this, try to do that. You're going to have to be very, very secure about the people around you and this and that and the other thing. They knew, according to the New York Times, all about Papadopoulos, yet they failed to say a single word to warn Trump or his team that they had a mole or someone in their midst. That's because the mole was working for them. He was their man to do the inside work for the deep state coup. It was a frame-up. The frame-up. The FBI should have advised Trump of Papadopoulos or arrested Papadopoulos for espionage. But they did nothing. Why? Either working with Papadopoulos or never, or taking him seriously as a threat could be the only excuses. And we found out it's because they were working with Papadopoulos, but not in the way that we're being told. We're being told that they wired him up because he got caught, and they used that and said, "Oh, we're going to prosecute you if you don't wear a wire for us." But that's not the true story. That's the bullshit. But really, they probably should have arrested him for engaging in espionage, and certainly there should be some records, of which there appears to be none. I wonder why that is. He certainly was working in some way, shape, or form with the FBI. We know that. They got a big problem over there at the FBI, my friends. They got people who were doing things that should have been documented, if in fact it was part of an investigation. But he's nowhere. He's not in the dossier. He's not in the notes. He's not in memos. He's not in the investigations. He's not in the PDBs. He's nowhere, but he's everywhere. What's that tell you? He's the inside man. That's what that tells you. Did the FBI ever pursue a search warrant, surveillance on Papadopoulos? They sure did on Carter Page. If, in fact, the New York Times article is correct, and it was all about Papadopoulos, then why didn't they get the surveillance warrant on him? Why don't we have that FISA warrant to look at, and that application? That would be nice, wouldn't it? You ain't never going to see it, because it never happened. They didn't need to surveil Papadopoulos because he was working for them. They knew everything he was doing because they were coaching him. He was doing exactly what he'd been instructed to do. Did the Next question. Sorry, we just asked that one. And it was a good one. Not good enough to do twice, though. Why did Australian government hold on the intel for 2 months? Why did Downer go to the Australian government? He's buddies with Steele. And possibly the FBI and the CIA. He's good friends. Hey, he knows Bill Clinton very well. There's photographs of them together. He donated to the Clinton Foundation. He obviously knows Secretary Clinton quite well. He obviously probably did some work for her as well. She was the New York senator when he was a diplomat there, and Clinton was the president when he was a diplomat. So basically, this is a good question because here you have Downer having this conversation. He waits 2.5 months to go to the Australian government to say anything, yet he could have immediately called his buddy Christopher Steele. He could have called any of his buddies that he knows in the intelligence community in the UK. They could have passed it along. He could have called Bill Clinton personally. He's probably got his cell phone number. They probably have a seat, probably close to one another, on the Lolita Express. None of this makes any sense, does it? Not to a rational person. How does Papadopoulos even get a meeting with Alexander Downer? Who put that together? Exactly a question. Thank you, SonofNewo, for asking that question. It's the exact same question I asked about a week and a half ago. How do you even get into that meeting? You don't. unless you know somebody. And who hooked that up? Who do you think? Maybe the rotten Reverend Clinton? Maybe the crooked peckered accused rapist husband of the rotten Reverend Clinton, William Jefferson Blythe Clinton? Think so? How about the dirty, miserable, dishonorable James Comey? Maybe Mr. Rodenstein? Maybe Peter Benstrokinus? Who knows? Someone put that meeting together, my friends. Someone put that meeting together. If the U.S. wasn't informed by the Australian government about Russia hacking until July 2016, then how is it that the first FISA application was sought in June, the same time Carter Page was observed, and the same time that the first memo comes out? Again, it's just a timeline problem that I talked about right after the New York Times story came out. It doesn't work. The timeline doesn't work. All the activities that took place that began the Russia investigation took place at the same time that Papadopoulos was in Rome, supposedly hanging out with Milian and hanging out with these other people, and nothing about him, only about Carter Page when they went to get that first FISA warrant, which was turned down. Then they came back a second time and got the FISA warrant approved. And based on what we know now about Papadopoulos, he's a liar. The guy embellishes the truth. Even 3 of the 4 dossier sources who he credits as being the ones who gave him this intel say he's bullshitting. They say, I don't know any Russian intelligence people. I didn't tell Papadopoulos about any emails. I don't know about any of that. I've never heard of any of that. Papadopoulos, he's just a young kid who's, dreams a lot, I guess. I don't know. He lies a lot. We know he lied to the FBI 6 times. We know he lied on his application to work for the Trump team. We know that the guy lies a lot. So why would you rest FISA warrants on him? Why would you rest an investigation on him? Why would you conduct surveillance on him? Why would you conduct this massive investigation on the president-elect or possible president-elect, the nominee of the Republican Party, all based on Papadopoulos? The FBI certainly would have known about his track record as a liar, because after all, he was working for them, and he was lying for them. Was Papadopoulos Christopher Steele's main man in Rome? I've asked that exact same question. I believe he was. Was he Steele's source? I believe he was. Now, SonofNewo goes one step farther. He goes one step farther. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. He may just be a couple steps ahead of me. But he goes one step farther in this video. I really shouldn't ruin it for you. You should watch it yourself, but I can't help myself, so I'm going to go ahead and ruin it for you anyway. SonofNewo is making a strong suggestion that possibly Papadopoulos was the dossier. He was the dossier. He was a source A, B, C, D, and F. He made it all up. Working for the FBI as the inside man, funneling the information probably to Bruce Orr, through Peter Benstrokinus, right back to Nellie Orr, right back to Glenn Simpson. They put the story together. They wrap it all up with a pretty little bow to frame up Trump. Sorry, not going to work. Thank you very much. That's TowerGate for Wednesday, January the 10th, 2018. What do you think? I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see what else falls. Have a good night. Goodbye.